KNAC.com. Thanks for checking in. Thrashing is his business, and business is good. We got David Ellefson here, King of Thrash. We are talking the 10th annual Metal Allegiance show coming up. For those unaware of what Metal Allegiance is, in your words, David, how would you describe it?
Well, I would say it is a fine collection of some of the thrash elite, some of the founders, pioneers, front runners, the innovators of the genre, as well as some current members of groups and artists that are keeping the genre alive and keeping it moving forward. So that
Very
spans
cool.
what, 40 years, something like that.
Mhm. And you'll be doing it's like a huge jam session of all this great talent, busting out some like iconic thrash covers. Could you give us a little sneak peek without much spoilers of like what songs you might cover
Sure.
or what bands you might cover?
Yeah, no, of course. We cover some of our own groups that we are in or have been in.
Right.
Except Dream Theater with Mike Portnoy. We don't have a Dream Theater song in there yet. Maybe
That would
on
take some time.
anniversary, maybe on the 11th anniversary we will, because now that he's back in Dream Theater. But
Oh yeah.
and Dream Theater probably not being a thrash band per se, unless Pull Me
Yeah.
Under qualify with the double kicks. One of
Okay.
my Dream Theater songs.
Me
Uh,
too. Me too.
yeah. But yeah, other than that, look, Bobby Blitz is there from Overkill.
Yeah.
So take that. Chuck and Chuck Billy and Alex Skolnick from Testament.
Very cool.
Obviously, Chris Poland are there. So if you kind of use your imagination, you can kind of fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And along with that, we have two of our own studio albums that Metal Allegiance has done for Nuclear Blast. So those are now, those are kind of anchors in the set, because as much as it started initially as us, kind of playing off the Metal Masters concept that we had back around the,
Yeah.
the big four shows earlier in the, in the 2010, 11, around that era.
Mhm.
This then turned into Metal Allegiance, where it became an actual recording artist itself, a recording act. But look, part of it is the fun of celebrating. We all share the same record collection. You know what I mean? So we pull things out, and that's something we get to. It's funny, when you meet somebody. I was listening to a podcast yesterday on YouTube, and the guy was interviewing somebody from the band Riot. Right now,
Wow.
speaking of Kings of Thrash, me and Jeff Young, big Riot fans, in our minds, they are part of the new wave of British heavy metal, even though they're from New York. Not British, obviously, but they're part of the genre, right? They're kind of part of that whole Saxon Def Leppard,
Yeah.
that whole movement, Iron Maiden, that movement that happened. But it's funny how, and as I was listening to it, the host and the guy from Riot were just sort of riffing on everything from the Beatles to Kiss to this stuff. And it's funny how we all kind of, if you're our age-ish, you sort of agree on the things you listen to versus the things that really had impact to you.
Right.
I
Right.
heard Beatles, they did not impact me. Kiss impacted me, same with like I heard, Led Zeppelin, but it was Sweet and things like that that impacted me. I heard Sweet and I wanted to play the electric guitar immediately. Ballroom Blitz is like, how do you fucking do that? That is rad, So it's just the things that are around.
Yeah.
Nazareth, same thing. I'd heard Nazareth. I had older, growing up on the farm, we hired older
Uh-huh.
vocational school kids, guys and stuff, and they'd have beer parties, and I'd always hear Nazareth songs and things like that. So, you never know the things that you get turned on to by who's around you and influences you. And I think in Metal
Totally.
Legion, we're, just like at KNAC, we all share the same record collection. That's what makes us brothers and sisters in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, allegiance is a great word. Community, that sense of community. I really enjoy these shows. I've attended several Metal Allegiance shows. The Metal Masters that you mentioned as well. I've caught a couple of those, and
Yeah.
it's great. Like I love that uh, you, the artists that wrote these songs, recorded these songs, performed these songs live. You still like doing these, like in a sense where it's like now it's like we're kind of I don't mean it in a negative sense, but now you're kind of like a cover band. You're
Yeah.
covering these songs with like other artists from other bands too, and I myself, I'm a drummer myself, and I enjoy doing covers. I like, learning new songs, playing old songs, and putting a little twist on them. So it's great to see like all these great classics, live still to this day, and all
Well,
these great
it's funny,
artists.
for the first 20 years of my career, as a professional recording artist, I'll say, was with Megadeth, right? So the first, 18, 20 years, And I didn't really do any side projects. I didn't, I
Mhm.
kind of lost my sensibility for playing covers. I wasn't out doing jam sessions. I wasn't doing too much of this kind of stuff
Mhm.
because there just, number one, wasn't time, and my
Right.
focus was entirely on our band, right?
Right.
And then, in the 2000s, the group disbanded for a while, and I stepped out and started, hanging with some other buddies. I was getting invited in. Of course, at this point now, I'm already an established artist on my own.
Of course.
People would call me, because they wanted someone of my pedigree to come in and, jam with them and play with them and stuff. And
Yeah.
during the NAMM show, for instance, I then was running artist relations for PV, which put me in touch with a whole wide group of people. I mean, I got to jam with one of my heroes, Randy Bachman from BTO.
Nice.
Somebody brought him into PV, and it was just great getting to know him. And I know his
Yeah.
son Tal real well, and so just kind of getting to know them and
Mhm.
get to jam with him at an event at the Hilton during NAMM that PV had hosted.
Yeah.
Um, and also another event, me, Tim Ripper Owens, Rob from Chimera, and I forgot Jason Bittner. A few guys, some younger guys than me, right? But they were
Mhm.
all brothers in the neighborhood, and so we jammed. And out of that, I got a call to put together something that we called Hail, which really was a heavy metal cover band, and it was really one of the first ones out doing any of this stuff. Where we did it, and it was me, Ripper, Jimmy DeGrasso, and Andreas Kisser. And we met sight unseen at a bar in Santiago, Chile, and put Hail together. And we ripped through, some Motorhead, Megadeth, Sepultura, all the
Sweet.
stuff, Priest. And we did a whole 5-city tour up and down Chile.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and I think that just goes to show the passion. We all knew each other, but we never played together. So we kind of trusted, okay, everyone can play. Everyone will show up, knowing their parts. But that was
Yeah.
the first time that I ever kind of really publicly just went out and was just when we took that thing around the world and went out and played
Yeah.
covers and that kind of stuff. So by the time Metal Masters came around, at this point now I'm back in Megadeth again. We're doing the big
Mhm.
four shows.
Yeah.
My catalog of covers was up. It was tightened up, man. It was good, right? So by the
Yeah.
time we started doing this and we played on the Motorhead cruise, all of a sudden I had a pretty deep repertoire of cover material again that I had long forgotten for 20 years now was back. And
Right.
so now I have fun with it. And it's funny because I grew up playing covers. Most of us do when we're first
Yeah.
starting out playing. We're
We're trying to
jamming.
learn something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. We're jamming with our buddies in the neighborhood, whatever. And same with me in Minnesota, But my bands, we quickly started trying to write material because we saw
Yeah.
that's how you get to the top, as you have a career.
Mhm.
But I admire people who can play covers because there's a real skill to it. I saw Zeppelin USA the other day, and
Yeah.
a Zeppelin tribute band out of Las Vegas. And I got invited to the show, and my friend Christian, who was in Hell Yeah, is playing guitar, and he and I had
Right on.
played in Vegas a couple years back. I knew I was like, I got to get his number. That guy's good. So I stayed in touch with him, and then to see him now playing in this the Zeppelin tribute thing. And like I said, I
Wow.
wasn't the biggest Zeppelin fan.
Mhm.
Like I got to tell you, Zeppelin never sounded so good as it did the other night. What Zeppelin did was and they didn't wear wigs, they didn't look like Zeppelin, but they
Oh,
freaking
okay.
sounded amazing, man. So that by me again watching a tribute band who they really are into that. I actually have a whole new appreciation for how awesome Led Zeppelin was. And I know how popular they are. And I know culturally the impact that they've made. But to really kind of really listen and see guys play those parts that good and with great tone, modern sounds,
Mhm.
performances like dead on, no one's on drugs, no one's drunk. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like this is friggin' awesome. So,
Very good.
I sometimes see tribute bands. I love tribute bands, man. I mean,
Thank you.
I saw Yachtly
Yeah.
Crew at New Year's Eve. They
Yeah.
came through, and Yacht Rock is kind of a fun thing because that's also music I grew up on the radio.
Right. Right.
And so it's like I hear these familiar songs from when I was a kid, and I've never played any of those songs. I don't play my Christopher Cross and Hall and Oates songs myself, but to watch friends of mine and friends my age playing, I'm like, damn, dude,
Mhm.
that's good, So it's
Yeah.
so there's a place for all of us, man. It's just kind of finding our.
Absolutely. Right, right. I myself am in a tribute to Black Sabbath, and Bill Ward is one of my one of the biggest influences on me on his drumming. So I try to keep it, honoring his, drumming because he's an amazing drummer. And
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, but
Well, I mean, when you're in a tribute band, it's all about if you're not looking the part, at least sounding like pretty close to the original. I mean, really be
oh,
on, and that's a real skill, man. I have great
mhm.
appreciation for guys like you and people that do those because
Yeah,
they're So look, we're fans. We show up expecting it to sound like the record, and when you guys deliver it,
Sure.
it's thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and then like it gives you a nice fresh perspective, I think, of your playing when you're playing some original stuff too. It's like, let me
Right.
try this that I did over here.
Yeah.
Take little puzzle pieces from your playing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're talking David Ellefson here. The Metal Allegiance coming up next week, actually, and I will definitely be there as well.
Good.
Hope to meet you. Also, you had mentioned the NAMM show, the National Association of Music Merchants,
Yeah.
the annual uh, gathering in
Yeah.
Anaheim, California, that they moved back to winter. Um, and you will have a booth there for your coffee company, I heard.
Yeah, Ellison Coffee Co. Yeah, booth 5030 at Hall D. So I think right as you walk in, as best I can remember from the map, I think you walk in, kind of bang a little to the left, and
Okay.
we'll be right there. So yeah, if you're walking over to Tama and Ibanez and a bunch of those
Yeah.
big boys, just
Yeah.
look. I know because we exhibited. It was 2018 that we exhibited there before, and people would go, "Man, that coffee smells amazing." So I
Yeah.
always tell people, "Follow your nose, you'll find us."
Yeah. And I'm a Tama guy myself. You will have a bit of a special, I want to say, a premiere for a trailer for one of your fallen brothers, Nick
Yeah.
Menza. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Well, so I got asked to narrate this movie called "This Was My Life: The Story of Nick Menza," and it's his life story from birth until he passed. And obviously, 10 years in there was with Megadeth, which is certainly, one of the more public parts of his life as a professional drummer. But it's so getting asked to narrate it. And then, like I always do, look, I've lived with Nick on the road. I spent 10 years in the Yellow Submarine with him, so I know a lot of that. I know a lot of people, obviously, to connect it. So when we did the interviews, reached out to people. Jeff Young actually really stepped in too. He helped us get the facility where we filmed a lot of the interview footage. We were able to get with our other fallen brother, Bob Nalbandian, to get him to comment before he passed from cancer last year. So a good some crew members, tour managers, just really I think a nice spread. His family, his mom, his dad. Nick's dad, Don Menza, is a very very well, highly esteemed woodwind player. I mean, first chair tenor sax for Buddy Rich, Louis Bellson. So
No
when Nick
way.
was a kid, yeah, Nick was a kid. He's at like I think he was born in Munich. I mean, he's at these jazz festivals in Europe with his dad. Guys like Buddy Rich and Louis Bellson are handing him the drumsticks, going, "Have at it, kid, hit the kit." So I mean, Nick's story is super colorful and very cool, and so yeah, it's a lot of work. It's an independent film. It's we're all kind of pitching in, to make it happen, and so we set a deadline to get the thing finished now and to get it out. We of course go to some of the film festivals. Most of the stuff now ends up digitally on the Netflix, Tubi's, these kind of platforms. So I thought this is a good time to sort of roll out another little clip of it and show everybody what kind of the spirit of what the movie's going to look like, and
Sure.
some of the people that are in it, and we do a little Q&A after for the fans, and if some of the
Yeah.
media are there. So again, it's a really heartfelt story. Nick's sister Danya, who's kind of the ambassador for all things Nick as
Yeah.
far as his career and professionally, from back in the day. And I mean, look, it's her brother, so she has a real passionate for this film, and just keeping Nick's story alive, of like she said, it's her way to stay connected to Nick since he left the planet, clearly too early,
Way too early, way too early. And man, if you're gonna go, what a way to go! Like at the baked potato while he was performing, and
I said that too. I inducted him into the Metal Hall of Fame, which is always the Wednesday night before NAMM. It'll be next Wednesday.
next Wednesday as well.
Yeah, and I was asked to induct Nick posthumously, of course. So his family was there. I had not seen his family in a great many years, so it was nice to reconnect with them. And I felt the same thing. That it's Nick's whole purpose in life and passion of life was behind those drums, man.
Yeah.
And as sad as it is that he's no longer with us, what a great way to just I'm out. You know what I mean? And it's you know what I mean? So it's sad that he's no longer with us, but it's like, look, we're none of us get out of here alive, right? So it's a day we all face. And so, I
Yeah.
think that with this film, it's a way to sort of celebrate, you know, the greatness that Nick was, and for all of us to be around him, and his life touched so many people, you know. So
Yeah,
with his
yeah,
music
including
and
me. Like, he totally
yeah,
influenced my playing. He's an amazing drummer. Between Countdown to Extinction and Rest in Peace are some of my favorite performances of the sound and everything. Like, he's just his.
I
Oh man,
agree.
he's
I
so
listened to tracks. I even, and what I wasn't aware is how uh, um, just he wrote so much stuff and recorded a lot of stuff after Megadeth, and I was not aware of that until we started doing the film.
yeah.
That, you know, there's how much material he did, not just, you know, sort of playthroughs that are on YouTube that he did, you know, to some Megadeth
Aside from the
stuff.
OHM stuff that he was,
What is it?
aside from the was it the OHM that he was involved, right?
Yeah, because that was, you know, really, that was, you know, Chris Poland's band, still is actually yeah. And he played with them, and that's the performance he was at when he
Yeah,
passed Baked Potato. But yeah, a lot of other stuff that he did, a lot of other material, a lot of other songs, a lot of other great tracks that he laid down.
yeah.
That we were actually even able to write some material over. I took some tracks in the studio one day, and I just said, you know, put those up. I plugged my guitar and I started writing some riffs over it.
Wow.
And I thought, what a great way to still collaborate with, that you know,
Yeah,
he's got his drum tracks,
yeah.
and we could write some stuff. So a few of us in the neighborhood jumped in and composed some stuff, and some people that he had already been writing with before he passed as well. So we'll have a little, you know, a little standalone soundtrack
Yeah.
that'll accompany this as well when it comes out.
Right. That must have brought a tear to your eye to be able to like just write some music with him again posthumously.
Yeah, you know, because I know his feel, obviously, right? Having cut those records with him, you know, and it's funny because live Nick was such a ball of energy, and he would really push the
Yeah,
band, really play it on the front of the beat, and he'd
yeah,
be this. Yet in the studio, he could really get, you know, he played great to a click track, and you know, I just think of he and Max Norman, because they really had a great kinship in the studio. Because, you know, when you're cutting tracks, it's kind of you and the engineer, you know, you and the producer. It's a real kind of intimate one-on-one, you know,
sure,
music,
sure.
communication there. So, you know, he played so good to the click, and he could be right on or behind the beat. He really, you know, he knew where to place the beat. He wasn't doing things without knowing what he was doing. He was musical in that sense that, you know, if he needed to sort of kick it in the ass, he would, and if he needed to lay it back, he would. So that, you know, that I think showed great aptitude of his.
Hmm. And between those two records that I mentioned, like some great sound out of that. Let's talk about your bass sound and like how much work have you put into your sound from, say, the early days, of Killing Is My Business to like, Dystopia, the one that you won a Grammy for. How much focus, how important is it your bass sound for some of the gear nerds out there too who might
You
might, might be
know,
curious?
to me, bass sound, any sound, whether it's guitar, the kick drum sound, the snare, you know, usually drums are kind of tuned to whatever tuning the band is in. You know, most of the Megadeth stuff, of course, was A440 standard tuning. A lot of the stuff we do, Metal Allegiance, is half step down. Pretty much any jam session you walk into is E flat, kind of this half step down. Um, you know, other records I've done, like the Dieth record, is down in C. You know what I mean? So drums are tuned usually according to, you know, the pitch of the band or the pitch of the song, so that things resonate, you know, well in that, and make sure the kit's tuned together to, you know, to itself as well. You know, to me, I record everything pretty just straight with a DI. You know, I never print effects for the most part. I mean, maybe in the Dieth record we did a little bit. You know, the Megadeth stuff was always just it's real clean. You know what I mean? And I learned to play really clean. I'm up on my fingertips. I mean, I'm like a real student of the bass. You know, like even when I moved over to 5 string, I really learned, you know, what that string does and what it, you know, how it sort of behaves. That one string is almost an instrument in itself because it's so fat and big, and especially the thrash stuff is fast and you're ripping and playing, and so there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of things to consider. So, you know, to me, I always record, you know, pretty clean, and then you know, there's, you know, the reamping is very popular now, and we started doing that back. I remember when we were working with Dan Huff on Cryptic Writings, we started reamping where we would even the guitars, we would take a clean signal into the console, so it's like pring pring pring. It sounds really funny, right? But
Mhm.
then you reamp it later, be through plugins and Pro Tools and stuff. Now the digital stuff, you can reamp and put different plugins in and
Sure.
create whatever tone you want, you know. So and I'll say this, you know, the other day I got asked by my friend Ken Mary, drummer from Alice Cooper and House of Lords, now plays in Flotsam and Jetsam. He asked me to come in and work on a track that's like an homage to Rush. And when it was really clean, it was hard to play and it was kind of uninspired. So he pulled up a Sansamp plugin and got like a Geddy Lee tone. And
Mhm.
suddenly, dude, like Geddy Lee showed up in the, suddenly I was like, because I'm a Geddy fan. I know how he plays, right? And so next thing you know, I'm, thrashing away with that gnarly, growly Bytor and the Snow Dog kind of freaking tone. And all of a sudden, and Ken's a great player. He really copped this Neil Peart kind of vibe. So next thing you know, it was like Neil and Geddy suddenly showed up in the studio, and we're and a lot. And it's funny how just adding that plugin suddenly inspired me. So and that happens a lot. I'll plug into an amp and it's like, whoa, there's suddenly a song falls out, right? I'll pick up a guitar here. That's why I got a bunch of them here. I'll plug it in and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, just hearing something will be an inspiration. So I think there's tones for writing because you're creating, then there's tones when you're committing something to tape. That'll be a performance forever, like you say, dystopia. And then, the other part of it too is in the mixing. I trust mix engineers. Sometimes the guy that records the record is not the one who mixes it. There's a different mix engineer. They come in with a different perspective. And they'll hear things differently and they'll go, yeah, here I got to add some frequencies to the kick drums, maybe some triggers, some things. The bass guitar, I need to dirty it up a little bit. Let me put my Ampeg SVT plug in on it or reamp it through an SVT.
Yeah.
Maybe let's put it through a Marshall amp and dirty it up a little bit so it's not so clean. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
for me,
Make it dirty.
as an artist, I want to record the part and the performance of the music as the music calls for, but the
Sure.
final mix of the record is you're always, as soon as you move one fader of a hi-hat, you now have to compensate somewhere else. That's why I listen to like these Mutt Lange recordings of the Def Leppard stuff, right? Especially like with Pyromania and Hysteria.
Mhm.
Mutt never, the hi-hat's gone. Like listen to it. There's no hi-hat. And suddenly there's all that which eats up a lot of frequency is gone and or it's minimal at best. And suddenly now the guitars are really, you can hear everything. You can hear
Right.
Joe's voice late. So, when you just turning the hi-hat down suddenly changes the entire scope of the mix, just as an example. So,
Very true.
for the most part, I've played with heavy, loud, kind of Marshall-esque guitar players, which are dirty and distorted. So I find I need to have a clean bass because that defines the note.
Mhm.
Whereas if you had a cleaner guitar, you could have a dirtier, scratchier sounding bass.
Mhm. Very, very
So there's
cool.
the short answer
No, I
to
love it. I
bass.
love it. Talking gear, I'm sure a lot of people that watch this are interested in how you develop your sound, the idea, the perspective of
Yeah,
like how to approach, like you said, studio recording versus writing and versus live. It's
right.
a different aspect. But I really appreciate your knowledge, man. David Ellefson, we're here talking about the Metal Allegiance show coming up next week during the annual NAMM. Again, David Ellefson, you have your coffee brand with the trailer of Nick Menza's documentary that will be released. I'm sorry, when would the documentary be released, do you know?
We have to. I'm not the boss of that, to be honest
Yeah.
with you, because
Right.
really Holly, the director, is the one who's kind of driving the bus on that one as far because there's a whole process. I learned this when me and Drew Fortier did the Dwellers movie. That which again just an independent found footage film, zero budget.
Holy
And
shit.
we submitted for a bunch of film festivals. In fact, I got one right here, the Las Vegas Film Awards. These cool,
Nice,
we
congrats.
put in all these film festivals, and we've won all these I don't know, not Grammys. We won all these laurels, they call them. And I don't know, we
Congratulations.
submitted to 30 some festivals. Yeah, we got back 20 some like wins and and all this stuff. So super, super cool, nominations or whatever they call them, wins, whatever. But
Sure.
so there's a process of that. And I know a lot of the film festival thing, part of it is promotion and publicity. And some of it, you're going there because you're looking for distribution. You're sort of bringing a product, looking for a distributor to put it out. So there's a process that goes with that.
Mhm.
And so I can't answer that. I'm trying to have an answer maybe by NAMM for our Q&A
Sure.
next week of
Very cool.
a better timeline. So things are moving along pretty quick now. So hopefully I'll know more next week on that.
Very cool. We're almost out of time here. I did want to touch a little bit on Kings of Thrash, the recent shows that you had here. You had a couple of shows out here in Southern California. How did that go?
Great. It's funny, the whiskey has become like our second home. I mean, it's kind of our first home because ironically, that's where we've kind of formed at the Ultimate Jam Night. back in was that April, I think, of 20 it was right after me and Jeff connected again to film his clips in the his clip in the Nick Menza documentary. So that would have been 22, I think, right? April 22. So I guess almost 2 years ago. And out of that is where we formed Kings of Thrash. And it's funny, we just got invited back. So next Tuesday nights, we're going to be playing at the Ultimate Jam Nights at the Whiskey again.
Oh yeah, I saw that's gonna be like a pretty heavy night.
Yeah, we're gonna get up, play a few songs. So we're performing there, and then we're gonna play the next night as well at the Metal Hall of Fame at the gala. We're gonna be performing a few songs, which is kind of cool because Penelope Spheris is being inducted into the Metal Hall of Fame, and she directed the In My Darkest Hour video, which was also part of the Decline of Western Civilization movie that she did. So
yeah.
Super cool that she'll be there, and we might even play a song for her.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'm gonna see if I can make that one next Wednesday. A lot happening out in Orange County next week. I'm all the way up in the valley, and Mission Hill is like more than an hour away, so that trek's a little tough, but it's always worth it.
Yeah, well, that's when you get your hotel room down in Anaheim, I guess, right? Yeah,
No,
I talked to a lot of people like that too. They're like, man, I don't know if I'm going to drive all the way down. It's like, man, just camp out like all the rest of us are doing. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of where all the action is down in Anaheim, and that's why it was fun. You asked about the shows back in December, playing at in Santa Ana over at Stages. It's nice to be there in December, knowing we're going to be coming back into the area here in January. So it's good to be back.
Did you have anything else planned for NAMM or that weekend?
Look, so we got, I guess, Ultimate Jam Night Tuesday with Kings of Thrash, Wednesday nights at the Metal Hall of Fame Gala. We'll be performing, and then Thursday will be Metal Allegiance. Yep, and Dieth is actually going to be. We're going to play a short set right before Kings of Thrash. So I'll be doing kind of double duty that night. And then on Friday night, I'm going to be participating in the Ronnie Montrose Remembered event at, what is that called? The Grand Theater, I think it is. So they do that every year. They started doing that a few years ago. I played bass for Ronnie back in 2007 to 2009. Jimmy DeGrasso and I were in his band there for a couple years. So a lot of fun shows we did, and with Def Leppard, actually. We did the first couple shows I did were actually with Def Leppard. So
nice.
So yeah, it was good. It was good fun. So I like doing it. I love those songs. That's Sammy Hagar's first band. So when I listen to it, it's like
Red Rocker.
I love that era. Sammy was great, of course, and the tunes are killer. And you read these Van Halen books. That was Ted Templeman who produced that record, and that's kind of where they sort of used that model of how they recorded that first Montrose record and how they recorded the first Van Halen record. Very, very similar, very live, band in the room, really playing together as Ted recorded the band. So to me, there's like a nice kind of, so then the irony that Sammy would end up in Van Halen all those years later,
Yeah. So. What coincidence. Yeah. Call it heavy metal.
Exactly. Yeah. I just saw him play that over at the Eddie Trunk thing, man. That was awesome, man. I was sitting on the side of the stage with Robbie Crane, the bass player. He became my new bestie that night. We were bass nerds, and he played on a lot of the show. So it was fun just standing on the side of the stage watching. Sammy's like the ultimate like heavy metal frat boy, and he'll even bring the booze, So it's like he's all ready to rock, man. I love it. Him and Michael Anthony, what a great pair,
Very, very cool. David Ellefson, thank you so much for your time. Metal Allegiance next Thursday at the House of Blues of Anaheim, at the Grove for the Metal Hall of Fame next Wednesday. NAMM coming up next weekend. Make sure you go to Hall D. And what was the booth?
5030, 5030.
And I believe it was like around noon that they were going to premiere their trailer, I think.
At 12 noon on Saturday. Yep, 12 noon
on Saturday. I'll definitely be there, and I will come to say hi, and it'll be great to meet you. And again, thanks for your time. Was there anything else that you wanted to let your fans and followers know about?
That's it. I mean, like davidellefson.com, it's all over there, usual Facebook and all the stuff, you know where to find me. And at NAMM, just follow your nose. You'll find us. Smell the coffee.
Very cool.
Wake up, smell the coffee.
And if ever the need arises, I would love the opportunity to just jam and throw down with you, man. You're such a great inspiration. I speak for many thrash metal heads that so if you ever need a drummer, man, I'll be around.
Hey, and at NAMM, there'll be plenty of drums and basses around. So let's see if we can sneak away and we'll throw down a few bars and some tunes together.
Totally down. Totally down.
I like it. Awesome, my friend. Yeah.
Have a great time, and I'll see you soon.
Your brother. Bye. Bye.